Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show today. Let's start just by asking you to give me some context to you. Tell me a bit about your background, a bit about your life.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Chris Richards. For those who don't know, I'm a mindset, business, identity coach and mentor. I generally work with a lot of high-level, high-achieving, often A-type entrepreneurs and business owners. I've been doing this for very close to 10 years now, focused on every element of performance and leadership, going from, general habit creation and just changing some habits up and being more effective in that way, stepping into leadership and just being a healthier, happier person with better relationships on the back end as well. Because as we were speaking just before you hit the record button, a person can be very, very successful on the front end, but the business can be making money even and doing really well. But if that person is going through a lot of internal issues, that can very often show up eventually in the business or in the team and the culture. So I tend to help the individuals become, for lack of a word, a better version of themselves, a more up-leveled version of themselves, less held back by their wounds or childhood or attachments, so they can really do some good in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of that, I've always understood, or no, more recently understood, that actually growth isn't necessarily always about learning new things. Sometimes it's about undoing old things and changing some of your old habits, because all of us, we've all grown up, but we've all got our own different story during that growth period, and we've not always picked up the right habits.
Absolutely. A lot of people, and that's a great place to start. A lot of people believe if they work with someone like me or work with me, they're going to be learning a lot of stuff. They're going to have to take on a lot of things. And actually, that's very rarely the case. The vast majority of time, it's about unlearning mentalities, unlearning beliefs. Yes, you've got to swap them out very often with more healthy and empowering ones. But generally speaking, it's not about how much you can take on and how much you can learn and how much you can be and do and all these things. I've got to add a whole bunch of new rituals to my life. No, it's actually a lot of it is just taking away things that don't serve you anymore. There's a great mentality, and there's actually a book on this, which is what got me here won't get me there. And the idea is essentially the identity you have gets you to a certain point, and then it has a level of elasticity, and it can only stretch so far. And when it gets to kind of its full stretching point, if you like, that's when people start feeling a lot more resistance, a lot more internal conflict, and a lot more hesitation or apprehension to making decisions and taking action. And in those moments, a lot of people attach the wrong meanings to them. They decide that it means that they're in the wrong business or they're doing the wrong thing, and or some other thing that's not. Oh, maybe I myself need to do some work and really become the person that the higher level becomes my daily normal. Because a lot of people are trying to do things that are beyond their past identity. And it's possible. A lot of people get to millions or multi-million level without ever doing like deep identity reconditioning. They'll do some mindset, they'll do some meditation, some journaling, some affirmations, and all that good stuff. And it is good. But in order to really change your life, it's about unlearning beliefs that you have held for a very long time sometimes, and relearning new ones.
Yeah, I mean, I love that concept because, I've certainly been through a bit of a journey, and actually I've added more things into my life that, you say that about those, your mindset, your positive affirmations. I ice bath. I mean, that's partly physical, partly mental. I don't really know, but I like it, and that fits in with my morning routine. So I have that. I try and be up before everyone else. I do that, and I'll read a bit of a book and have my coffee. I guess I process that from the fact of whatever else happens during the day with kids, with work, things, I've had a little bit of my own time in the morning. Because if I try and get that at the end of the day, quite often the day just flows. I'm trying to set myself up for a better day, but I'm still probably making some wrong decisions based on stuff that happened years and years and years ago, or just bad habits that I've created, I guess.
Well, first of all, that kind of mentality of pay yourself first, not just by salary but by action, is absolutely phenomenal, and a lot of people miss that. They say, once I do this task, then I'll go and relax for a while. And of course, that task not only either doesn't get done, or it gets done, but not to the level it could have been if the person genuinely relaxed and took time for themselves. Um, the issue that a lot of people face is even when they're doing, like I say, the identity needs to change, the belief systems. And so even if you can give someone a new daily structure, if they are physically resting, but their mind continually goes and just doesn't switch off, then that's not rest. No, if they are concerned, worried, or going through some kind of emotional thing, stressful, anxiety, again, that's not rest. The body is working really hard to process and do things. And there's actually a part of the mind, a part of the brain that stores unfinished tasks. And so the more of them you add, or the more important the task, that your mind's like, you haven't done that yet. It will keep playing in the background. And so a lot of people will have rest and still feel completely fatigued. And again, it's about the meanings we associate. And so they'll look at that and say, well, wasn't that a waste of time? Wasn't taking rest for myself a waste of time? Wasn't going to the gym first a waste of time? Because now I just feel tired and I've wasted all this time that I could have been working. And so very important to change habits. Arguably more important to look at identity, because that's going to really shape how that habit flows, if you like.
Okay, talk to me about identity then. I mean, talk to me about identity then. What do you class that as?
So, first of all, mindset is a very high level term. It's very limited in its capacity, but identity is the I am. It's the sum total of all your parts. All the beliefs, whether they are similar or conflicting. It's about all your stories that you hold in your conscious and subconscious. It's the meanings you associate. It's the filters you see life through. It's your environment. A lot of people don't realize that your environment accounts for up to 50% of your personality at any one time. Okay. The people who are around you, the situation you're in, can have a massive impact. Consumption of social media or mass media or whatever can have a massive impact. And even to the point of the words you speak to yourself routinely without realizing it half the time has this huge impact on the essentially the self-image. So we have the self-image. We also have, which is what you perceive yourself as consciously, but then you also have a subconscious blueprint that's running as well. And those don't always agree. This is where we're like, I know I'm capable and I know I'm worthy, but I'm just not doing the things and I'm still afraid of failure. It's like, what the hell's going on? It's like, okay, it's fine. It's not screwy. It's simply you've got two horses pulling different directions. And so that's kind of where I step in, where I go in and I just find out where it's pointing one way or the other and get everything pointing in the same direction. So yeah, the identity is your beliefs, your values, your stories, your meanings. It's your daily habits as part of your beliefs. It's not just who you are, it's what you do and how you operate in the world. It's your environment, as I said before. It's your somatics, your body, your identity. A lot of it was formed before your mind was even capable of taking on beliefs and working things out. So you took lessons in who you are and what you're about before you ever realized you were taking lessons in those things. You know, if you were
Wow.
left alone
Yeah.
to deal with your emotions when you're very young, you would have created some type of belief without realizing what the belief was. If you were hurt or neglected or whatever, especially sub 7 years old, our bodies store that information. Our bodies and our minds and our nervous system stores that information. And just like the internet itself doesn't have an intelligence to it, the sheer connectivity acts like a brain,
Yeah.
right? Well, the nervous system's the same. It's not a brain in itself. The body isn't a brain. It's not the same as the brain, but it does, due to the connectivity, it can think, for lack of a better word, in its own ways. And so you've got to get all that aligned and attuned. And a lot of people aren't even connected to their bodies that much. You ask them what they're feeling, and very often they'll say, "Well, I think I'm feeling this." It's like, I didn't ask you what you're thinking. I asked you what you're feeling. Because a lot of people, when they're younger, their identity was formed, and it was a lesson to say, my body isn't safe. And
Yeah.
so identity is this incredible term that kind of brings together all those parts, the habits, the beliefs and the stories and the meanings, the somatics and the environment. And it all brings it all together. And any individual thing can be changed. But if you don't access and look at all four areas at the same time, very often we get into problems.
Yeah. I mean,
That's why a lot of therapies don't work as well.
yeah. I mean, I've got quite a few things I want to talk about. I mean, one thing you've said about going back pre 7 years old and things like that. I mean, I guess I was going to say childhood trauma, but maybe childhood experiences is different, because I guess both positive and negative can start to affect your identity as you grow up.
Absolutely. Traumas is still being studied. It's still, we talk about people being trauma informed, trauma trained. It's still being studied, it's still being understood, especially complex trauma. And that in itself, in the psychological community, is this really broad term, actually, that covers a lot of things, and not everyone agrees on the definitions. That being said, childhood trauma, conditioning, programming, depends on the level of impact it had on you, whether it was too much for too long, or there was a big thing that happened that had a really big impact on you. Or it could be, and I've said this in a previous podcast with someone else, it could be a parent who loves you so much that every time you're sad or feeling down or feeling fearful, they wrap their arms around you and they tell you you're absolutely fine, you're okay, they're there, don't cry, it's all right. And that comes from an act of sheer love. But what you're actually showing the child there is sadness and fear are things to be avoided, are things that are bad, are things that you need someone to take away from you. What it's not doing, which a lot of parents don't realize, is that they're not saying it's okay to be sad. Carry on, let it out, feel it. It's okay. It's not going to hurt you. And I'm here with you while you go through it. It's okay to feel this. And we'll talk about why you might be feeling it afterwards. But for now, validating that feeling, it's okay. Most parents have no idea what to do in that situation. So what they do is they go, there, let me take this feeling away from you.
Yeah.
Let me help take this away. And it's perfectly natural reaction. You know, I've got two girls.
Yeah.
I never want to see them in pain. I never want to see them hurt. I never want to see them crying.
No.
It's awful. Um, that being said, it's not on me to take that away. If I do, I'm kind of cheating them out of the ability to self-regulate.
Yes.
So it
Yeah. I
doesn't
mean,
always have to be, you know, putting cigarettes out on you and keeping you in a cupboard under the stairs. You know, you don't have to be physically mistreated in order to have a conditioning that doesn't serve you in your adult years.
yeah, I love the way you've put that, a conditioning that doesn't serve you. Because we've all had different experiences, and actually, I'm always slightly intrigued that some people have had such a tough upbringing, war-torn countries and things like
Yeah,
that, and they've managed to then propel themselves forward and achieve amazing things. Yet
yeah.
other people, it might have, we might look at it as, well, actually, you had an okay upbringing, but there's been something that's really affected them to not achieve
Well,
where
it's
they've
all
gone.
subjective. It's all subjective,
Yeah,
and what you tend to find is you tend to find people who justify, or they might come to terms with it, or it could create other behaviors that on the surface, yeah, they're these powerhouses. They keep going. They're wonderful. They can do anything. They can create all kinds of things. Amazing. But then it's when you look under the surface, and when you work with so many people as I have in business, in athletics, and you name it, you start seeing these patterns emerge, and you start seeing that behind that kind of go go go, there lies a person who doesn't know how to stop, who doesn't know how to find peace within themselves unless they're moving forward. People who have a belief that if I'm not moving forward, I may as well be dying. It's like slow death.
yeah,
If I'm not moving forward, I have to keep improving. I have to keep building myself. Because what they don't realize is very often they have this belief that says, if I don't keep moving forward, I'm going to be hurt, or I'm not going to be able to give enough value, or I'm not going to be good enough. And so I have to keep going and trying to find this nirvana that's going to finally bestow worthiness upon me. But of course, that never comes. And so every level, they think they're going to get it. And you see this a lot in business where, if when I'm at 10,000 a month, then I'll feel as a success. And actually, you're like, no, you're just getting started at that point. Okay,
yeah,
well, maybe at 50,000 a month. That's a good number by a lot of people's standards.
yeah,
Nope. When you get to 50, you realize you're around more people who are multimillionaires. So at 50, you're like, oh, damn it. Okay, well, at 100,000 a month, then I'll feel enough. And I'm working here with people at well over millions of dollars a month, and they're still chasing.
yeah,
But the problem is, eventually, you get to that point, or people get to that point, and it's sad. It feels sad, but it dawns on them like, oh my God, this wasn't it. I'm doing all the things. I'm still not feeling full and worthy and love and all these things. And I'm still pushing partners away who are good fits. And I'm still doing these other things in the background. And I'm still having these doubts and whether I'm good enough or whether I deserve to be in certain rooms or working with certain people. Because they believe that once they attain something external, whether it be status, reputation, money, whatever, that's going to fill that void. That's going to fill that hole. The hole, by the way, that drove them to the success.
yeah,
And so they can't now turn on it and say it's a bad thing because it created all this success. But at the same time, is it also causing problems? And if I heal myself, does that mean I lose my drive? Does that mean I lose my motivation? It's a big fear a lot of people have. And it's of course not true at all. If anything, it opens you up to be able to do more with your life to help more people. But you have all these kind of belief systems and conditioning that just by looking at someone's achievements, you cannot know what's happening under the surface. You cannot know, this person came from this situation to that situation, and now they're successful. This person came from, silver spoon, and now they're depressed and losing their mind. There's always a reason for it, and suffering is subjective. It's a very personal thing. And a lot of people also use examples like that to essentially gaslight themselves, where they will say, I shouldn't be feeling this bad because other people have it worse. And so they essentially gaslight their own experience and teach themselves that that they shouldn't be having it. It's wrong to have it. That, who are they to worry about how hard life is when other people are barely able to survive and eat? All they have is, the stress of a business and people wanting to be paid and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly experienced that. I mean, I remember I've done a fair bit of therapy in recent years, and I remember I started off. I reckon that the first time I ever spoke to my therapist, I sort of said, I feel almost like, what right have I got to not actually be happy with my life? Because on paper, I've got a partner,
and
2
everyone's always telling
kids,
you
a
to
house.
be grateful.
Yeah,
you've got to be grateful. Just be grateful.
I know.
Be positive. Be positive and be grateful. That's all. There you go. Yourself.
But it didn't make it right. And there was a really interesting point prior to this that I was growing the business, but actually I was struggling a fair bit with it. But actually, on paper, the business was doing well. Turnover was increasing, staff numbers were increasing, the clients we were working with was increasing. And I used to go out networking, and people would go, "Cool, you're smashing it at the moment."
Yeah.
And you'd think that'd make me go, "Yeah, I am," but it made it worse.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I say, of course. As I mentioned before the call when you told me that. A lot of the time, if we have our worth or identity attached and associated to the outcomes and the achievements, it can first drive us to do amazing things because, those things then reflect on us. It reflects on our worth. But when we write content or create something or put something out in the world and people love it, well, now we have something that we have to continually live up to. We've set the bar.
Yeah.
and so this desire to prove ourselves as it starts as actually becomes this prison that we're now in golden handcuffs, having to continually try to keep up with a kind of a symbol of ourselves that we ourselves created.
Yes.
And so that actually fits into kind of the strategist archetype, which is, my 5 archetypes. This attachment to achievement and outcome can foster amazing results. It can also foster feeling stuck and not doing anything, but it can go both ways. It can foster these incredible results, but then when if you also have a bit of sage where you're great, but the skills are too attached to your worth as well. when the risk of criticism and judgment gets too high or out of your control, and that's paired with you've just done a great job.
Yeah.
That's the amount of additional pressure that puts on a person. And it's not external, it's all internal. And it can all be changed and remodeled and reprogrammed, which is the good part. But the amount of pressure that person then feels every single day, having to live up to this expectation on them, knowing full well they themselves created that expectation in their desire for success. So now not only have they got extra pressure and anxiety, now they're feeling like an idiot for putting themselves in that position.
It's that awkward second album, isn't it? It's sort of that sort of thing.
It's things that just get added, and then something else gets added, and something else gets added.
Yeah.
And this person's like, "Oh my God, I feel so successful," and this person's just breaking down. And their relationships are going, or there's trouble behind the scenes a lot of the time, because so much energy is now having to be put to keep up appearances, to keep this thing going, to remain the king, and all these things, right? To stay as status and not lose reputation. So often we see people's health suffering, we see people's relationships suffering. And so a lot of people, especially trailblazers, that's another archetype, especially trailblazers and heroes as well. The hero is one that just always wants to do good by others and make sure everyone's happy, make sure everyone's taken care of, and very loving people, generally speaking. But there's problems to all five. And all these people put so much pressure on themselves because they're attaching their worth and attaching their identity to things that are external to them. And they haven't ever been really taught, and their identity has been conditioned to truly feel intrinsic worth. It's all well and good knowing you're worthy. A lot of people who know they're worthy intellectually, and they can justify it intellectually, and they can, give evidence to why they're worthy as a human being. And, we can do the, all babies are born worthy, and you're always worthy, and you're always a good, good potential, good person. But then as we live and in everyday life, pre 7 years old and afterwards, we start picking up these other attachments, and we start picking up I'm only loved when I do this. So that must be what the rule is. As long as I give value, I'll be loved. And if I don't give value, I shouldn't be loved. Not I won't be, I shouldn't be. I get a lot of attention and recognition when I show my expertise, or I deliver an amazing outcome, or I achieve something. That must mean that my personal worth goes up and down with my achievement, or how much I'm recognized. And because we attach our worth to these things, it causes all kinds of problems. And I'm very happy to go through the 5 archetypes and actually list them off for people if you'd like.
Yeah, I think we need to go through them. I don't know whether you want to. I have got a question, because you're talking about people's worth and things like that. One of the biggest things I see in a lot of business owners, and we see people talk about it a lot more, is that impostor syndrome.
Oh, yeah. So
give me your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 main areas I look at are worth, trust, and love. If the person is lacking or has issues around their self-worth, there's going to be a problem. If they have issues around trusting themselves or trusting others, there's going to be a problem. And if they have issues around loving themselves or loving others, there's going to be a problem. And by the way, that doesn't also mean they have a problem loving other people. It can be they love other people so much that they're giving up their boundaries and sacrificing too much. But we'll come back to that. Imposter syndrome. A lot of people believe that if they have imposter syndrome, if they have that feeling of, who am I to do this? Is this really for me? That something's wrong with them, that they have a mindset problem. And like I say, if some of the behaviors that I'm about to go into come out, then there may be some work to be done still. And that's okay. Like it's not you that's a problem, it's your behaviors. And the behaviors can be changed. The habits can be changed. The beliefs can be changed. You as a human being are good and excellent and fun and lovable and all the things. But whenever we step up to a new level, whenever we go for something we've never had before, and that could be in your business, that could be in a relationship with a love that you've never had so good with somebody, it could be any number of things, health, fitness. When we're going after something, when we want and need something that we don't have right now, we've never had, then this feeling of is it really for me? Am I really the kind of person who should have this? I'm not, or the foregone conclusion is also what I hear, which is like, I'm not one of those people who has that. That's not something that's not something for me. That's the foregone conclusion of imposter syndrome, where you've just decided that it's not for you.
No.
Very, very common. And actually, I literally said those words when I was offered to step up on stage with Les Brown. I organised a whole Les Brown in London event, and someone came up to me, a good friend, he was like, hey, this is your event. Why don't you go up on stage? And I said, no. I'm not one of those people that people want to listen to. Like, everybody is open to these issues, and this is way back when I started, but clearly I have no issues speaking and being on stage now. It's okay to have these beliefs, and it's okay to have those fears. That's fine. But imposter syndrome, whenever we step into something that we've never had before, our minds ask the question, have we ever had this before? How do we know that this is really for us? How do we know it's not going to cause us harm? How do we know, is it going to cause us harm? We don't even know that, right?
No.
And the only place it has to look is your memory and your experience and your past. It's the only place it has. But as we've just said, it's something you've never had before. So you can look at your experience and past memories as much as you want. You're never going to find it. And so what the mind has to come to the conclusion of is, at least in part, is to say, oh, I don't know. That's the best case scenario. I don't know if this is for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we've never had it before. That's actually one of the best things. Because from there you can go into, well, let's just go for it and see what happens. Because that's about self-love, self-worth, and self-trust. Yeah. Let's just go for it. I feel like it's right for us. Let's do it. I feel like it's what we want. Let's go for it. But a lot of people don't have that, I'm not sure, or they see I don't know as actually a weakness. And so the mind skips over I don't know and goes straight to no. Because it's like, I'm not at the financial level as the other people in this mastermind, or I'm not at the, if you paid to be in the mastermind, you belong in the mastermind. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you were accepted into the mastermind, you therefore belong in the mastermind or the room or the event or whatever. But most people can't allow themselves to receive that. And that's the difference. So that's why I'm saying you can change the externals as much as you like. The internal is what's going to be painting your reality. And so it's perfectly normal to have a feeling, or at least part of you, doubting whether something is for you or not. Okay, it's perfectly normal. There's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with you. If that's all you have and you're going for the thing you want. If there's a part of you that comes up with a few doubts every now and again, that's fine. That's normal. Absolutely perfect. If you have that feeling and it causes you to be inconsistent or hold yourself back or not speak up when you want to or say yes when you want to be saying no and things like that, then we have more work to do. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's still, and this is so important, it still doesn't mean that you have to stop and not keep moving forward. If that's the direction you want to go. A lot of people also fall into this habit of saying, well, I've got this mindset issue. I need to work on it and fix it and resolve it before I can move forward.
Yeah.
Incorrect. There is nothing wrong with going forward and dealing with the stuff as and when it comes up. In fact, it can make it a lot easier. I often talk about mindset blocks and identity issues like invisible chains that only become visible when they're pulled tight. Well, if you're standing in the same spot, then they're not ever going to be pulled tight. But as soon as you start moving in a direction, eventually one of them is going to clang tight, and you'll be able to see it and feel it and know where it is. That's often the only way we find our triggers and find our traumas and find our areas to be worked on is when we're actually doing something. Yeah. It's where a lot of people fall down on because they are waiting to feel motivated before they do things. They don't realize that action creates motivation, not the other way around. Motivation doesn't create action. It works the opposite way around. Most people don't realize that.
Okay, yeah. So you do actually have to get going to give yourself.
You got to get going. Yeah,
it's the old thing about going to the gym actually gives you energy, but you think you need energy to go to the gym, but actually it's the other way around.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. A lot of the time as well, we have this kind of defense mechanism that if your body and mind's conditioning, unconscious or not, if your body and mind's conditioning is based on feeling, I'll go to the gym when I feel energized and I feel like I have a good, I want to do it. Let's say you also have a fear that if you become too, and a lot of women have this, especially ones who have unfortunately gone through abuse or, pardon me, or something similar. Very, very common, this one, is this mentality of belief that if I'm too attractive in my body, I won't be able to control who looks at it, and who has attempts on me. Yeah, because it comes from this old idea of I'm powerless to fight off the things. And so my only real defense is to remain, for lack of a better word, unattractive, or overweight or whatever, right? No, they're not synonyms. But so what you have is you have one part of you that says, I'll go to the gym when I'm feeling energized. You have a fear saying, as soon as I'm physically fit, I'm going to get all this attention that I don't particularly want. And so what the mind does to reconcile that is it says, okay, no problem. We'll just zap your energy. We'll sap your energy. Therefore, you will always have a justified reason not to go to the gym. And then you're safe. And so this is what the ego does, and the ego gets a bad rap, in my opinion.
Because so just quickly, because we're designed to keep ourselves safe, aren't we? As in, like, and fight or flight. There's lots of talk about that now, because it was fine when you were, had the risk of a saber-toothed tiger going to eat you, but probably less so sitting in your comfortable office.
Yeah, but I mean, we still have saber-toothed tigers. They just don't come in the form of a saber-toothed tiger. There's two forms. We have actual physical threat, which is much more prevalent for women, generally speaking. We have actual physical threat, and we have the belief of harm attached to things, attached to outcomes. So if a lot of criticism or judgment really hurts you emotionally, then you're going to treat criticism and judgment like a saber-toothed tiger, and you're going to try to avoid it wherever possible. Or you're going to try and become so powerful, and a lot of people do this. They put a lot of emphasis on becoming more powerful rather than dealing with the fear. And the belief system that thing is even should be hurting them. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
So we have saber-toothed tigers. Our mind isn't misfiring when we get into fight and flight. It's a lot of people. In fact, I've had a lot of clients, very, very successful people on the outside, come to me because they have this feeling of anxiety and overwhelm and assigned to their beliefs that this, too much criticism, or the team leaving, or the team having these beliefs about them is this awful thing. And so their mind is doing what it's programmed to do. It's trying to protect them from those external situations. And so this is where our coping mechanisms comes in, right? So our coping mechanisms, 9 times out of 10, will be avoidance of some sort. This is where addiction very often comes in, where it's either social media, it could be sex, it could be food, you name it. But anything that takes you away from the feeling or situation can become addictive. If the fear is high enough, every time you get close to it, the mind will take you off in that direction. And if that thing, it could be gaming, it could be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But if that thing helps to nullify the emotion, nullify the feeling, and take your mind off it, then the mind's going to learn that. And so every time it's conditioned, right? It's the program.
Yeah.
So every time we do this, it takes us off in that direction. And so that becomes this new neuro pathway that when I get too close to this, take me in that direction. And this is where we get those somatic impulses to. I have some fun with this with a group I mentor. Where I'm saying, like, you're never going to find the sales page you want to write in the fridge or the laundry. It's not there. You're not going to find it there.
No.
Like just sit down and do the sales page. But this is one of the things, right? There's a lot of people, when they feel that internal impulse or that little whisper in their mind that says, you know what, now would be a really great time to whatever, answer clients, because that's non-threatening, because I like my clients and they're good and blah, blah, blah. And I know that they respect me, so there's no fear around that. It could be, oh, this is a really good time to, do house chores, do the laundry, do whatever. Yeah. And some people's houses are very clean, especially around the time that they're doing a product launch. So it's like, eating as well gives us a feeling of dopamine. It can become an addictive behavior because it's a guaranteed result. If you scroll on social media, you're guaranteed that hit of dopamine. You're guaranteed to get what you want, because it's designed to know what you like and to provide it to you in easy bursts. Non-threatening, easy bursts of exactly what you want.
And I guess our brain is just so clever that it shortcuts. It doesn't have to think about it. It doesn't have to work anything out. It knows, oh, actually, I'll just do that. If there's and I get it. Yeah, there's the choice between a fearful situation and eating some ice cream.
Exactly. I wonder which way we're going to go. But this is where discipline comes in. And discipline is also a misused term, because it's seen as this really hard, heavy thing, and it's really simply a set of values attached to a set of habits. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
If you have both nice and clear, and you have things in place to make them easier and make them repeatable, then actually it's fairly straightforward. It's fairly easy to create more discipline in your life. But it's interesting, one of the things you said about the shortcuts. And yes, you're absolutely right. Our minds, very similar to muscles. Muscles have two fibers. We have slow twitch and we have fast twitch. The fast twitch muscles are the ones that are, by virtue of the name, supposed to move quickly. If you touch something hot, you don't want all your strength to be activated and your muscles to come together. You just want to get your hand away. That's fast, right? So you're going to need the fast motion. Then slow twitch is that, you're picking up something heavy and you do that thing where you muster all your strength. You're like, come on. Yes. And you're picking out. Slow twitch muscles are used for that. Our minds work in a very similar way, that we'll have fast twitch and slow twitch. And the difference is generally what has been repeated the most, what has been conditioned the most. A habit, people say, they say like, oh, it takes 21 days to build a habit and not worry about it and then not think about it because it's just your normal. It takes this long, or 3 months, or 1 month, or whatever. The different research for different things. What that's really saying is, how long does it take you to go from consciously, slow twitch, consciously thinking and intentionally repeating, until it becomes an everyday thing that just feels natural. The time is dependent on a few things. It's dependent on the fears and the resistance that get in the way. Because if you're like, I'm going to do affirmations every day to feel confident, but then there's a part of you that you're not dealing with that says, actually, you're only good when you show up to do work and you haven't been showing up here and here and here. It doesn't matter how many affirmations you get, because they'll always be short-lived. Because as soon as that fear and resistance come in, it's going to put you back again. Yeah. And so it counts for the time, but it also accounts for the internal resistance, the internal blocks, the internal beliefs. But it's in creating that fast twitch motion that we create our unconscious identities, our subconscious identities, that work basically, when X, do Y. If this, then that. And it starts thinking in these very simplistic ways, but it has lots of them. And so it's like, when someone shouts at you, then, body, mind have this reaction, have this response. This is why you could shout at 100 people and get 100 different responses.
Yeah.
It's not the shouter, it's how it's being received and the meaning that's been associated and the internal identity of that person believing themselves to be powerful or powerless, or anywhere on that spectrum, or what you class the other person as. This person's throwing insults and things at me. Well, depending on your identity and your set of beliefs, either they're full of crap, or oh my god, they might have a really good point. I should listen to them.
Yeah.
And I should feel bad about myself. Yeah,
it is the sort of what we pin on the situation. It's not the situation affecting us. I mean, the example I've heard before is, you're getting ready to paint your room and you've put all the dust sheets down, you've got your paint, you've got your ladder, you get up the ladder with the paint and the dog runs in, knocks you, paint goes everywhere. Now, someone could absolutely go, why does this always happen to me? This always, completely.
Right.
Other people will just laugh at it and be like,
that's the fast twitch. So that'll be the fast twitch. The moment it happens, and you probably had this where something happens and you have an immediate reaction, and then you kind of catch yourself and be like, you know what? It's not that big a deal. I can take care of this. Yeah. But you did have an immediate flash.
Yes.
Now, that's perfectly okay. That's okay. That's the fast twitch doing its fast twitch thing, whatever the most repeated and conditioned response is, which could need some work sometimes. And it's your slow twitch, catching it, having awareness and knowing how to manage it. Yeah, so it's both. A lot of people, they have this fast twitch reactions that lead them to feel unworthy, not good enough, stupid, bad. And their body and mind has been conditioned in such a way that if this, then feel terrible, feel bad, just give up. If this, then it's worth it. If that, then it's not worth it and you should just quit. Yeah. So a lot of people have these kind of conditioning, and most of the time they don't realize it. It's why I created the quiz, to highlight these things. So, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, no, we're fine. So actually, let's talk about it, because I took the quiz just before coming on here, and while I'm not going to ask you necessarily to speak specifically about me, but go through the 5 different archetypes.
It's fine. It's all confidential. When you do the quiz, it's confidential.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty open anyway. But yeah, go through the 5 of them for anyone that's listening.
Absolutely. So the quiz is 25 questions, and I've created them in a way that people won't quite know what relates to what, and I've mixed them all up, so hopefully, as long as you answer honestly, you get an accurate result, and you get a score out of 15 in all 5 archetypes. So you could be a strategist, you could be an experimentalist, a trailblazer, a sage, or a hero, or you could be a mix of all of them. In varying degrees. A strategist is generally someone who has potentially problems with taking action. An experimentalist will have issues with consistency and staying consistent to one thing. I'll go into why in a bit. Both strategist and experimentalist may find that they feel like they have a problem with clarity, because the strategist says, when I have clarity, then I'll do something. And the experimentalist says, when I have clarity, I'll commit to something.
Yeah.
So fairly similar, but for different reasons. Then we have the trailblazer, which often people have a problem with self-regulation, with finding peace and flow and operating from a place of kind of calm. They're always going. Again, I'll go into why in a minute. Then we have the sage. And the sage people tend to have a problem with really owning their expertise, their knowledge publicly. Like, you can speak one-to-one with them and they'll be very happy to tell you how they are absolutely sure they are great at what they do. They know their stuff and all these things. Then when you take a step back, it's like, okay, well, are you showing up like that? Are you showing up in the world with that level of confidence that you have this and you're doing these things and you're not afraid of what people think of you? And if the answer is no, then they could have this attachment issue that links to Sage. So showing up, but doing it fully.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have the hero. And the hero very often is people who have a lot of love to give, who are very kind, good people, but they can become very self-sacrificial and have an issue with boundaries around their time, around their energy, their attention, whatever. But heroes aren't always that great at keeping boundaries and saying no when they actually want to be saying no. Likewise, heroes can also have a slight problem with showing that they're in a better position than other people. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who don't want to show that they are paid more, even though they've taken all the risk and done all the work and all the things, and they're the top boss. They don't want to treat themselves. They don't even give themselves salary. A lot of these multiple, successful multi-millionaire level people don't pay themselves salary. Not for tax reasons, but because they themselves would much rather it go to other people.
Yeah.
And that in itself as kindness is lovely. Like, all of these have good qualities that in themselves aren't bad. A strategist will plan and prepare and be able to take on a lot of knowledge, and they'll be able to learn, and they'll be very open learners. They love to take on the knowledge. They love to get things right. Very often they'll consider themselves perfectionists. They love getting things right. They really, really want to do a good job. They have this drive to do a good job. Experimentalists have a drive to seek novelty and innovation. They want to create. They're constant creators. These are good things. A trailblazer has this grit and resilience and determination that keeps moving forward, and they have this unstoppable, unformidable power. And they just keep going, and that's a good thing to be able to do that. Sages have this, like I say, this know-how and this pride in their ability, and they know that they are good at what they do. And heroes are kind and loving. Like, none of these are bad traits in themselves.
But I guess it's what, when they come together. I mean, the immediate example.
Well, it's when we have too much of an attachment.
Yeah.
Whether it be a childhood attachment, an identity attachment, whatever. When we have too much attached to it, and we gain too much externally for our worth and trust and love, that's when we get into problems. That's where the strategist needs the achievement and the outcome. And if they can't guarantee the outcome, they don't move forward.
No.
These are people who practice shelf development, and they will have every course by every program and every marketing coach, and they'll go from coach to coach to coach. And there's someone, I forget who it was that said it, and it's not a particularly nice thing that they said. They essentially go around plugging in the umbilical cord to people, wanting to be looked after, because strategists, when they have this to a very, very high degree, don't feel safe moving forward unless they have everything in place and can guarantee the outcome.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly, a great exercise to show some of this is, let's say you get 90 people buying your thing, just for the sake of easy math.
Yeah. 90
people buy your thing. The first 30 say it's the most amazing thing ever. Life-changing. Absolutely incredible. And they want to tell everybody they know about it. And people can do this when they're listening. Give that a score out of 10. 0 being it's awful, 10 being you'd be ecstatic to have that, you'd be so happy. Give that a kind of a score out of 10, how you would feel about those 30 people that's like, this is amazing. right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will score quite highly.
Yeah.
Some people are immediately thinking about the other 60. They can't even fathom. They can't even connect to that because they're too worried about what the other 60 are doing. And we'll get to this. I just read a whole bunch of people's minds without realizing. The middle 30 said, "Oh, this was rubbish. What a waste of time and money." Rate that out of 10. How do you feel about that feedback? And you give that a score out of 10. And the last 30, and like I said, even now you've still got people going, I still am not quite over this is awful, and quite frankly, that would break me. A lot of people have that. The last 30 said, you know what? They said they were going to do this. They did this. Good. They did what they said they were going to do. No more, no less. I'm pretty happy with it. Good. Yeah. Rate that as how you feel about that out of 10. Now, what we find is that if you rated it somewhere between, I'd feel 8, 9, 7, 8, 9 for the first slot. Of course, it feels good to make people feel good. That's awesome. But then you rated the second lot as like minus figures or 0 or 3 or whatever, like really low numbers. I feel awful. That is immediately showing your attachment to the outcome.
Yeah. And
it's the last group that really tells. Because if the last group is like, you know what, this was okay. If you're like, you know what, I'd feel, 7, 8, 9 out of that. Because as most people in business know, generally speaking, most people are going to be in that camp. It's not going to be 30. It's going to be a much higher percentage. Most people are going to be like, you know what, it's fine. That's good. Yeah. It's hard to impress people these days.
Yeah.
Well, it can be. So, but a lot of people look at that and they treat it almost the same, or sometimes the same, as the people who said it was terrible. And they'll rate that as 2, 3, or minus figures still as the same.
Yeah.
And that really shows that creates this belief of if it's not amazing, not only if it's not amazing, that's strategist. If people don't think it's amazing and think I'm amazing, that's sage, then it's not worth doing. That I need to do more work on it. That I need to make it better until everybody 100% is guaranteed to love it. This is both strategist and sage for different reasons. I can't move forward with it. Yeah. And so it's really understanding how our mind looks at situations and what it takes from each situation. So a strategist will attach their worth to the outcome. Yeah. I'll skip forward because we just covered it. The sage will attach their worth to recognition, to having their worth being reflected back to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, they'll both get themselves into the same problem, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And likewise, sages may also be like, oh, I'm just looking for clarity. Well, no, you're not. You're looking for guarantees that you're going to be adulated and loved.
Yeah.
An experimentalist, often these types of people come from a background where they didn't have much freedom. They were over-parented in some degree. It could be good or bad.
Yeah.
But they were over-parented or they were over-constrained. And now they've found freedom. They never want to give it up. I believe commitment issues may be another way to describe this.
Yeah.
This comes up in relationships. People have commitment issues. It's not that they fear commitment. It's that they fear being trapped. And they fear not having any options and having their autonomy being taken away, their agency. And that's a very legitimate fear for the body and the mind to have. We never want to become slaves. We never want to become, completely controlled by other people. So an experimentalist, if it has too much worth attached to that freedom, will be seeking out novelty and anytime they might be on track for a successful life, a golden handcuff situation.
Yeah.
they will worry about it and say, oh, change track. Or they'll start again. You see these people getting to 6 figures or 7 figures or even 8 figures and then starting again.
Yeah.
Then going to 6, 7, 8, start again. 6, 7, start again. And they just keep changing because they can't allow themselves to be trapped. Even if it creates this amazing life, even if they're doing great work and people are benefiting from it, they cannot allow themselves to feel trapped. And the only kind of, and for many of them, the only mentality at that point is, I need to get out. Not, I need to hire someone to take this over so it can keep working and doing good work and I can move on to something else. No, let's burn it to the ground. Let's just burn it to the ground and start again. That's simpler. Because that person often has a lot of confidence and a lot of know-how, and they know they can go from 0 to 7 figures fairly easily.
Yeah.
And so that won't hold any fear. It's only getting trapped that holds fear for them. And so they go 0, 7, 0, 7, 0, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 0, 7, and they'll just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Next one is a trailblazer, and we can go for a while. So next one's a trailblazer, and the trailblazer attaches a lot of their worth to validation. Different from recognition. Recognition for the sage is about, oh my God, you are so good. You are so great. This is great. Your work is great. You're being recognized.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, don't we get that as kids? Yeah. You're such a good boy. You're such a good girl. You did that so well. You're so smart. Oh my God, my son, my daughter, they're so smart.
Yeah.
And it becomes an identity trait. We start to attach to it and say, oh, I must be the smart one. Or, oh, they're so funny. And their recognition is now attached to being funny.
Yeah.
Well, validation is different. Validation is about you're worthwhile. Validation is the value you brought to me is worthy of me seeing you.
Okay. Yeah.
There is a slight difference.
Yeah, there is a difference.
It's worthy of me not mistreating you. It's trust issues.
Yeah.
It's worthy. You're being enough of value that you can relax. I'll keep you around. Yeah. That's validation.
Yeah.
Recognition is the pat on the back. Good job. You're amazing. You're amazing, and everything you touch is amazing. Great job. Yeah. Words of affirmation. Trailblazers need validation, as you are a valid human being. You are worthwhile. Yeah. It's subtle, and the behaviors can be fairly similar, but there is a difference.
Yeah. For
trailblazers, it's usually around trust. It's usually they can't trust that they're going to be loved, that they're going to be kept if they stop doing things or if they stop living up to an expectation. For a sage, being recognition, it's about attunement, because they themselves can't give themselves that recognition yet. They have trouble really owning their own authority and their own knowledge truly.
Yeah.
They know how good they are in their head, but they have trouble really owning the value they bring to other people. A trailblazer knows the value they bring to other people because they think that's all they are.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's so subtle, but the quiz brings out exactly which is which.
Yeah.
Strategists are often around connection issues. Experimentalists are often around autonomy, freedom. Trailblazers are validation and trust. Sages are recognition and attunement. So, if I can't attune to myself, I need to know if I'm being good or bad by you. You need to tell me. So I need an external to tell me whether I'm doing it well or doing it badly. These people can get themselves into all kinds of comparison problems. and searching from mentor to mentor just to have someone say you're on the right track, you're doing good, keep going. And the last one is the hero. The heroes are super caring. They're usually caregivers. They're usually very loving, but they do not want to be disapproved of. They don't want to be bad. They don't want to be disliked. They don't want to have someone tell them that they're not good enough, that they've done bad things, that they are bad. Yeah. And again, it's slightly different to Trailblazer, because Trailblazer is more validation, but this is more approval. Yeah. So are you being approved of? Are you on the right track? Yeah. So they get their worth from approval, and they definitely lose it or feel like they're losing it when they're disapproved of. These are people generally who have had I'm not angry, I'm really disappointed in you.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that one hurts straight in the heart. Yeah? I'm just really disappointed. I expected more from you. I really felt that you could do more. Whew. Heroes and trailblazers very often become very successful people, but they're very anxious and very overwhelmed because they're constantly trying to prove their value and prove their worth to be validated and approved of. Because if you need validation, recognition, and approval, you're going to score highly in all three: Trailblazer, Sage, and Hero. Yeah. Yeah. So depending on what you've attached your worth to, because it doesn't mean you just attach to one, you can have multiple.
Yeah.
That's why when you get the quiz scores, you get all 5 scores to see how high you are on each one.
Yeah.
And remembering that it's not about how much you want to plan and prepare and be prepared, or how much you want to have freedom, or how much you want to do a great job, or any of them. It's about how much you need to have those things. And if losing those things means losing a part of you, chances are there's an attachment issue that needs to be remedied or resolved or integrated. And again, it doesn't mean that you as a human being are wrong or bad. It's simply that you've been conditioned or something's happened to make your body or mind believe that you need these things in order to feel a certain way.
Yeah, there's so much to get going there. I'm really, I was listening quite intently because you can almost recognize some of those from people I know, from obviously myself, and you can start to see, sometimes why we do certain things. And
exactly.
And do you find, I've been frustrated with people who obviously have that other thing. So give an example, as a marketing agency, we create lots of content. I remember once we were doing a bid, it was time sensitive because it related to a particular date. And I was working with a client and they kept making changes and kept adjusting, and they weren't sure if that was the right word. And I think we're going to swap the imagery. In the end, the campaign never got launched because we'd missed the date.
Yeah.
And
because
I can see
whether that's strategist or experimentalist depends on the internal drive.
Yeah.
But the outcome of it is it could be Sage actually as well. Because it's very much like we need to get this right.
Yeah.
And it comes from this faulty belief that with enough preparation, it's possible to guarantee success.
Yeah.
And so if we're enough of a perfectionist, and if we're careful enough and conscientious enough and all these things enough, then when we hit that button, and the mind truly believes they're going to hit the button, or it doesn't let you think, you realize you're just wasting time, right?
Yeah.
Wasting time for the day to go past.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you that because that would make you feel bad. And your body, if you're doing the thing that your safety mechanism wants you to do, it's not about to alert you that you're following a safety mechanism rather than actually doing the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've been told,
subtle.
I've been told I would, and I believe I'd jump out of an airplane and, build the parachute on the way down, be fine. But equally, there are some other bits in there, the wanting to please people, the constant, I guess fear of letting people down, and the campaigns we're
Well,
delivering.
well,
Actually, I want them to go really
people-pleasing,
well. Yeah.
letting people down, that's disapproval. That's hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all of these have other names. So a strategist is a perfectionist. Experimentalist is a dabbler, someone who dabbles in lots of different things and always keeps changing. Trailblazer is a hustler. They keep working. They never stop. They burn themselves out very regularly.
Yeah.
And then they rest and they come back and then they burn themselves out again. They just stay in that cycle. So they don't know if they can do anything different, because they've learned at this point that that's just the way things are, because they don't know any different. A sage is kind of the quiet, unknown genius, the suffering genius that can never be understood by the common person. And the hero is really kind, and you know what? I'm just about other people. I just want other people to be. So the people pleasing. So these all have different names if the attachment goes too far or too deep.
Yeah.
And we hear them all the time. Procrastination, perfectionism, people pleasing, all the things. I don't like to use those terms, especially when people identify with them and they say, "Oh, I am a people pleaser. I am a perfectionist." I'm like, no, you have perfectionist tendencies. You have a habit of focusing on perfection rather than progress.
Yeah.
It's a habit. It's not you. It can be changed. I'm a procrastinator. No, you procrastinate.
Yes.
You put things off. You're not a procrastinator. Otherwise, what hope is there to change that? Because if it's a part of you, it's going to be a lot harder to change. If you're seeing it and almost taking pride in it, some people take pride in their people-pleasing or their perfectionism. They genuinely are proud. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I make sure everything's exactly right. Okay, well, you probably aren't as far forward as you could be, and you're probably not doing the things to a level that you could be, and personal preference, maybe you don't want to, and that's fine, I guess. Maybe you do, and you're afraid.
I guess, to finish off today, anyone who's listening, I reckon they probably are starting to recognize some of it. Is that the first step, actually understanding?
Absolutely. Bringing the awareness to it is 100% the first step, because like I said, a lot of these habits are fast twitch. They happen without you even realizing they're happening. I had a client I spoke to yesterday, in fact, that said something along the lines of, well, let me see if I can find it. They said something along the lines of, they said, I am a people pleaser. So I actually caught them in it and said, okay, well, watch out, because that's a natural habit that you've said that. Watch out for it, and instead change it to, in the past, I have caught myself in the habit of people pleasing when I wanted to blah. And when I knew that this was the right way to go. What it does is it leaves open the possibility of doing something different.
Yeah.
If you're saying I am, there's no more doing something different, because if you are a perfectionist, you're always going to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
If you are a people pleaser, then you're always going to be pleasing people. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And that's why we get into the identity work, because we've got to get into that really root level and rejig, reprogram, recondition who it is you believe you are on that foundational level, and in various parts of your body and mind and all the things.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I've learned for myself is actually, it was really interesting you spoke about slow twitch and fast twitch, and I've realized one thing I now do is try and buy myself a bit of time when someone's asked me to do something, because my immediate reaction before was yes. And then often within 10 minutes, I'm thinking, well, actually, I'm probably not the best person to do that. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that. And I can't do that.
People down.
But I didn't want to let people down. So now, regardless of what it is, I say, look, can I just check my diary for next week? Or I don't know what I've got on. Even if I know I've got something on, or I've got a free day, I like to almost say that just to give me a little bit of time to write. Because in the moment, I'm... Yeah.
Analytical, conscious thought. Absolutely right. And it can be very frustrating for a lot of people when they're in that point. There's four main levels of competence. There's, you're unconsciously incompetent. You're doing things that ideally you don't want to be doing. And you're not even aware of them. That's why awareness has to be the first point. And you've got to have love for yourself when these things come to light. And be kind to yourself, Then you become consciously incompetent. And that is a step up, which means you're a bit poop. Yeah. You have some poop habits, but at least you know about it.
Yeah.
Right? At least you know, and you can start implementing things. Then you become consciously competent. So this is like you've not only gained awareness, but now you know what you're doing, how you're doing it. And if you focus and if you have things in place, and you're going to stumble, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to keep bringing yourself back. And as long as you're conscious and intentional, you can do the things well. And It sounds like you're at a good level there. May even be some areas you're unconsciously competent, the highest level. This is where you've changed the habit so much that now you're doing the positive habit and you don't even have to think about it. It's now become a habit, and it's become your fast twitch response.
Yes, moving over for those positive things to become the fast twitch, and swapping it around.
Absolutely right. And that takes time. It takes patience, and it takes love and acceptance and forgiveness of yourself in order to do that. And it's why it's a lot easier when you have someone like me helping.
Yeah.
Because you can be reminded, so look, don't be so hard on yourself. Sages and trailblazers are especially hard on themselves. Because their worth has always been attached to doing a great job. Strategists as well. Yeah. To doing a great job. So, if I don't do a great job, no, it's okay to get it wrong sometimes. No, it's not. It's like, no, it really is. It's okay. So teaching people how to have forgiveness and patience for themselves is a big part of this growth. But once you have it, total freedom. Absolutely amazing. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, Chris, I've absolutely loved our conversation today. I think what I would say is the best thing for anyone that's, as I say, triggered. That makes it sound negative, but has really heard what you've said and gone, you know what?
Gained awareness.
Gained awareness is the best thing to take that test.
Absolutely. I'll send you the links.
We'll put them in the podcast.
atomicgrowth.co.uk. And it's all there. It's one of the first things you can see is the business archetypes quiz. And it is a quiz. It's supposed to be fun. And that leads on to, right now, it leads on to PDFs, depending when people are listening to this. I'm also creating little micro courses for people to go through to learn more about their archetypes, and not just a PDF. But I'm adding more and more to it and building this up because a lot of people are seeing themselves in it and recognizing these patterns and wanting to know how to change them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm all about.
Thank you so much for your insights today. I've learned a lot about myself, but equally about just the way you approach things. And I mean, that fast twitch, slow twitch part of your memory, that was a bit of a game-changing moment that I clicked. So I was really concentrating on that. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.